Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining and participating in our conference this afternoon related to docket number 2023-29S. And this is the application of JACABB utilities for, I think it's JACABB. I will confirm that with Mr.
Well, I
Elliott.
think the client calls it Jacob, and I perpetuate the mispronunciation. Probably the worst transgression a lawyer can do is to call his client by the wrong name.
Well, JACABB Utilities LLC for approval of an expansion of its existing sewer service territory to include certain portions of Pickens County and request for approval of the sanitary sewage asset purchase agreement with Cliffs Club Holdings LLC at Keowee Springs. So, Mr. Elliott, Mr. Scott Elliott, recognize your voice. You are here appearing on behalf of your client, JACABB Utilities LLC. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Wonderful. Thank you for joining us. And on behalf of the Office of Regulatory Staff, Mr. Alex Knowles, are you present?
Yes. Good afternoon, Jocelyn, Alex Knowles, and Donna Rainey on behalf of the ORS.
Good afternoon, Mr. Knowles and Ms. Rainey. And the Department of Consumer Affairs has received notices in this docket. They're not participating this afternoon. I'd like to recognize Attorney Sandra Moser. She is in the hearing room, and she will also be participating with us this afternoon. In addition to our live stream team, Melissa Purvis, the live stream producer, and Jackie Knight, WebEx extraordinaire. So, we are going to proceed. Let me just tell you all, Ms. Moser and I wanted to just ask you some questions, make sure we understand the proposed order and the stipulation. And here are some of the topics. We want to ask you about the letter of intent that's mentioned in the stipulation. We want to ask you about the May 15th date, the date that the parties agreed to finalize discovery. Make sure that date, that was adhered to by all the parties. I want to ask you a couple of questions about the amended application. For example, substantively, are you able to speak about what will change? Also want to ask you about the prior notice in the docket, and should the commission rule in favor of the stipulation, is it the parties and JACABB Utilities intent and the Office of Regulatory Staff's intent for any additional publication to take place? Okay, and finally, regarding a new hearing schedule and pre-file testimony deadlines. All right, so maybe we can begin with the easiest, I think, issue, and that's the May 15th date that's mentioned in the stipulation for finalizing discovery. Did that actually occur?
Yes, perhaps it's qualified a little bit, but we turned over in advance of May 15th all the financial detail that was required, and we turned over the manuals, as I recall, that were required. I think we have responded to that data request. The only reason I caveat is that in every case with the ORS, one set of answers creates more questions. And so I think that we have responded fully, but I'm assuming that there'll be additional questions. Okay. But I have not received them.
Okay. And Mr. Elliott, Mr. Knowles, and Ms. Rainey, we were just looking at that date, that's included in both the proposed order and in the stipulation. And if the commission approves the stipulation, the impact if that date and that agreement had not been met. You understand what I mean? What impact would that particular section of the stipulation have on the commission's order if it approves the stipulation? So,
Alex, are you comfortable that we've at least replied to the, notwithstanding whether you accept the answers and so forth, are you comfortable that we have fully responded? I think that's the question. Hello?
Oh, Mr. Knowles, I think you're muted.
If Alex is speaking, I can't hear him.
Yeah, we can't hear you, Mr. Knowles.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I
Yeah.
can hear you
Yes,
now.
sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Yep. Sorry about that. I got my mute unmute confused.
That's okay.
Apologies. There was Scott, I believe, one request that Jacob had not responded to, but other than that, I believe Jacob had at least provided some kind of response. Happy to try to work out.
Yeah, I just sitting here, I don't recall.
Yeah, I think it was
It-
1-14 was the only one that no response had been provided to.
What was 1-14?
Let's see. Provide documentation and support for the statement in section 10 of the agreement that, as required by DHEC, property owners would be required to execute a service agreement. That was a bit truncated, but the response was just Jacob will supplement.
Okay, all right. Well, I think for the purpose of this call, we'll at least, if it will move the stipulation and the order forward, will you extend the time for me to respond to that such that it won't serve as an impediment to approving the stipulation?
Yes, that sounds good.
Okay, is everyone comfortable with the language that says paragraph 2, section A, stipulation terms? The company agrees to answer. Are you comfortable, Mr. Knowles, Ms. Rainey, with that May 15th date in the stipulation? With it remaining?
I think so. Yeah, and I guess we could just say maybe something, and Jacob and ORS will work cooperatively regarding any necessary supplementation. Maybe that'll get us there.
I mean, that's fine with me.
I was just going to say, this is Sandra Moser, if I can just weigh in. I think having something in writing in regards to that outstanding discovery request would be really helpful for us, just because we've got that May 15th date, which obviously has passed. And so if you all don't mind, either an email or filing something supplementally so we can make sure we're covered in that regard.
Right.
If you can give me a day or two, I'm not sure what your time frame is at the PSC, but if you can give me a day or two, I might be able to get it answered.
I think this is on Thursday's agenda, Mr. Elliott, the 25th.
Oh, it is. Yeah, I remember
Yes,
now
sir.
that you mentioned it. Let me see if I can. Let me see. We can supplement, and when we hang up, I'll see if we can't. Let me see if I can't get the answer to them, and so that the filing reads the discovery has been complete as opposed to there's an outstanding discovery matter.
That would be
Is
great
that
if
okay?
we can. Yeah, I think that would resolve that issue if we can get that between now and Thursday.
And
Yes,
we
ma'am.
would leave the May 15th date then in the stipulation.
Yes, ma'am. One way or the other, we'll
Okay.
Yep.
satisfy your concerns about it.
Okay. All right.
Thanks.
Scott, after this, happy to jump on a call if it's helpful to talk through proposed language.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. Thank you. All right. The next, Sandra, are you comfortable with us moving forward with the letter of intent?
Yes.
Okay.
I think that's
So-
yeah.
Our reading of the stipulation, page 3 of 7, paragraph 6, that's the A6, okay? So the notice of intent, the stipulation, if approved by the commission, will be used as the notice of intent. We recognize as the letter of intent in this docket. And so from there, no more than or within 45 days after the commission's order approving the stipulation, Jacob will file an amended application. Mr. Elliott, will that amended application basically be the application that's already been filed with notations of what's changed, what's been amended? For example,
Yeah,
you...
I think, yeah.
Mhm.
Go ahead.
you weren't going to file like, I want to call them errata sheets, but you know what I mean. You were going to file, were you going to file the complete application again and then indicate in your filing what's changed?
Yes.
Okay.
I think that was mainly, Alex, help me out here, but I think that the principal concern, I think, was that we, that there are more factual foundations to the establishment than there is an expansion. I think wasn't the principal concern that that we provide that we amend by providing exhibits.
Yeah, Scott, that would be consistent with my recollection.
The exhibits in 512, so that would include, I think, like a balance sheet, profit and loss
Yes,
statement.
ma'am.
Okay. So you're basically amending the application. You would not be amending the rates that have already been noticed. Is that right?
Correct. No,
Okay.
we're just trying to.
Okay.
We have some good faith disagreement on the nature of the proceeding, and from our perspective, we're simply trying to take the path of least resistance, if you will, to satisfy the ORS that by whatever name the relief, the intended relief, is what just reasonable in the public interest.
Okay. And Mr. Elliott, just for I know there's some other things like a letter from DHEC. There's some other things, depreciation schedules. I think those are included in 512. But
yes, yes, we sort of, if I may, I sort of drafted this with this regulation in mind. There's some things that we can't supply until the facilities are constructed, and we've alleged that we would provide the as-builts, for instance, and DHEC's authorization to provide service, but that's premature. So what we're seeking is authority to proceed with this, and so at some point the requested relief is dependent upon getting the thing built and getting the as-builts and getting the certificate of authority from DHEC. So yes, we owe that, but we can't get that until we get the thing built.
okay. Would you also consider, if you don't mind, for those sections of 512.4.b that JACABB is unable to provide, would you at least include consider including a request for waiver of those sections? And the reason I asked that, Mr. Elliott, in order for us the clerk's office to proceed, I would at least need that in there so that I can place it before the commissioners, if that makes sense. Please consider that. Did I miss anything, Sandra, as it relates to the amended application? Turn your mic on for me.
I don't believe so. We're getting close to whether or not notice would have to be, if notice would have to go out again, but it sounds like, based on what I've heard, the rates would not be amended. And so I don't know if that resolves that issue.
Yeah, I think because that, Mr. Elliott, you stated that the rates won't change.
Yeah, correct. I mean, again, and Alex and I have had this conversation. I'm not sure. He has one roadmap to the same end, and I have a different roadmap to the same end, and that end is to permit service in this territory at a monthly sewer service charge at $30.50 or an availability fee of the same amount. So the rates will not change, and so I think the ORS was very kind to try to structure this settlement in such a way that we could expedite this thing and move it along.
Okay.
Without having to renotice or start over.
All right.
Okay.
And I'll just say for ORS, I Scott, definitely agree with you that as far as the rates that the company is requesting, we don't think those are changing.
Okay.
I guess.
Go ahead. Yes, ma'am.
This is probably a question for ORS. Do you see any other reason to, I guess, with notice, being necessary in this case, or do you think that just based on this fact that rates aren't going to be increased? I just want to make sure both parties are on the same page as far as that goes.
Yeah. I don't believe that in the stipulation ORS requested any additional notice. If the commission thought it was necessary to provide any additional notice, we wanted the stipulation to be able to accommodate the commission to require that. But yeah, so for ORS, I guess I'd just say, we'd stick to what we've agreed to in the stipulation, and we weren't making a specific request one way or the other, as I recollect.
Correct. Okay, and you're absolutely correct that was not in the stipulation. We just wanted to make sure that we weren't assuming anything. So.
Okay. Appreciate it.
Okay, but you have something else right now?
Not on that.
Not
topic.
right now. Okay, so then the other topic.
Jocelyn,
Yes, sir.
Back.
Yes, sir.
I'm looking at paragraph 12 of my application, and it says, but because performance of the agreement is conditioned upon the approval of the commission, the applicant will thereafter file a copy of a statement of the engineer that it was designed in accordance with good engineering practices, built according to plans, and file the DHEC letter. So if I understand what you're asking, you would appreciate my acknowledging that we're seeking a waiver of those requirements at this time, but at such time as we have those documents, we would submit them, or would you accept just a waiver of those altogether?
Well, your original application was filed under 504 and not 585240. So, had it been filed under 585240, and that the clerk's office would have then referred to the rate application statute for wastewater utilities. If all of those elements are not present, then the filing could be rejected. Now the filing will be made under 585240, which then will trigger the 5124B. And so that's why I was asking if you don't mind, in the amended application, if you see that you're unable to provide one of those documents, if you would ask for a waiver for for a period of time until such time as those documents are available.
Exist. Yeah.
Yes,
okay.
sir.
That's
yes,
my
sir.
question. That's my question.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. So I think we've talked about the publication issue. Yes, and we talked about notice. And so the other issue, the hearing schedule. So at that point, once we receive the amended application, typically those hearings are set within 4 months of the commission's receipt of the application. If the application is filed under a statute like 585240, is that what Mr. Elliott you envision, and also the Office of Regulatory Staff? Because now we're under that 6-month deadline for the commission to issue an order.
Well, I think that I don't envision being straitjacketed, but say to 4 months. But I think the developer would like to start developing this property as soon as he knows he's got sewer available. So time wouldn't be exactly of the essence, but we want to move as quickly as we might. So I think my answer is if it's all the same to the PSC and the ORS, if we use that 4-month schedule, that might satisfy our concerns.
Okay, so your preference is at this point to set the hearing, if possible, as early as possible, but we'd also have to set a new pre-filed testimony deadline schedule, I think.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Have to do that.
Okay.
And, yeah, Jocelyn, for ORS, I think, procedural schedule consistent with that typically issued by the commission in this kind of case would be consistent with what ORS was generally anticipating. I know the calendar is pretty jam-packed for the next few months, but yeah, right. At the risk of repeating myself, a procedural schedule consistent with that typically issued by the commission for this kind of proceeding would be consistent with what ORS was anticipating.
So consistent, you're saying, Mr. Knowles, consistent with our normal rate case schedule?
Yes.
Sandra, what have I missed?
Sorry about that. Scheduling was the biggest issue that I had. Just wanted to clarify what sort of procedural schedule would be on going forward. But it sounds like I think we've covered that issue, and I think we've covered all the other ones that you raised. So we're good.
Okay, so I think our follow-up will be just some type of documentation that the Office of Regulatory Staff and JACABB Utilities are comfortable with the discovery, that's been satisfied, and for the May 15th date to remain in the stipulation considered by the commission.
Yes, ma'am. And then I'm if and when the stipulation is approved by the commission and final order comes down, then I'll file an amended application consistent with the order.
Yes, sir. Okay, I can't think of anything else at this point. We appreciate your accommodating us on very, very short notice today.
No, I'm just sorry I couldn't get to you any sooner, but thanks for accommodating me. And so what if I may take advantage of the fact that I got Alex on the call. Alex, give me a few minutes to see if I can reach my client about this, the DHEC information, and then I'll call. Once I get a answer, I'll call you and we'll work through some language.
Okay. Yep, that sounds good, Scott.
Okay. All right. Appreciate the PSC working with us on this, and as always, appreciate the ORS working with me on this. So thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Elliott. Thank you, Mr. Knowles. Thank you, Ms. Rainey.
Thank you.
All right. Talk soon. Hopefully, hopefully next time I can see you. Now, I'm not sure you necessarily want to see me the next time, but hopefully I'll be able to figure out this WebEx, and I'll be able to.
We would love to see you next time.
Yeah. All right. You're kind. Thank you so much.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.